Hello everyone. Welcome to Caspian podcast discussing the impact of women leaders. Caspian Debt provides customized collateral-free debt to professionally managed MSMEs and startups. Our guests for the evening are two fearless women leaders in their respective fields. Please welcome our first guest, Ms. Hardika Shah, founder and CEO of Kinara Capital. Kinara Capital delivers fast and accessible financing to Indian MSMEs through collateral-free loans. It drives financial inclusion, which leads to entrepreneurial income growth and job creation, supporting women entrepreneurs via her Vikas discounted collateral-free business loans. Hardika holds an MBA from a joint program with Columbia Business School and Haas School of Business. Our second guest is Ms. Ragini Chaudhary, Director Investments at Caspian. Ms. Ragini is a development finance professional with more than 20 years of experience in microfinance, impact investment, and mainstreaming gender financing. She leads the finance and fundraising team at Caspian Debt. Ragini is a postgraduate from Institute of Rural Management, Anand, that is IRMA, and is a management accountant from SEMA UK and a certified executive coach. This conversation will be aided by Mr. Emmanuel Murray, investment director at Caspian. Emmanuel has 40 years of rich and diverse experience in agriculture and rural credit and micro enterprise finance. He is currently working to build a food and agri startup ecosystem at Caspian. Emmanuel has worked for 5 years with Manaviya Development and Finance Limited and 25 years with NABARD across various departments and geographies. Emmanuel holds a postgraduate degree in rural management from IRMA and MPhil in development studies from Center for Economic and Social Studies, Hyderabad. A warm welcome to all of you from Caspian. Over to you, Emmanuel.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thanks so much, Anshini, for the introductions. It's a pleasure for me to be moderating this discussion this evening with two women achievers and lots of young people, both women and men, look up to both of you as role models. And that's what we're going to explore over the next 40 minutes. And starting first with a question to you, Hardika, about some defining moments in your life's journey to getting to where you are today.
Well, there are many, but I would say that a little bit of background. I come from a very middle class family and grew up in Bombay, in the suburbs of Bombay, I would say, and my father, who is a professor, had access to the American Library, and I had the opportunity back in the pre-internet era to find out that there's this thing called liberal arts education, which you get to go to these liberal arts colleges in the US. And I was over the moon, like, oh, this is exactly what is right for me. But how does a middle class kid afford to go to the US for undergrad back in the day? And so that was a very big undertaking. That was a combination of one, convincing my parents that this was right for me, convincing my parents that it is completely safe to let your 17-year-old daughter go halfway across the globe. I mean, it's normal for somebody who had never been on a flight before that. And then, oh yes, don't worry, we'll about the money, but to their credit, I do give them a lot of credit. My dad, being a professor, as I said, is all about education. So they sold their house and to fund my education, which after a year of me going on about this thing, and that is a very defining moment because it gave me an opportunity to do what I wanted to do, and it shaped me both in terms of pursuing something that was important and sucking as much out of it, because it was such a hard road that not only me but my family had to traverse to get me there. And it certainly has taught me the value of family, the value of money, because uh, being, and also the value of building and bridging relationships with people from all kinds of places and all kinds of backgrounds, as you do in most in most college experiences, but certainly one where, while I was Indian and there were other Indian students, their experiences were different and their access to money was different than I did. And so I actually connected better with a lot of American students, but finding a way to bridge across, not just on one dimension, was another very defining moment that I learned through this experience. So there, I'll put a pause on that one.
Yeah, so Ragini, I think you're one of those most admired leaders in Caspian. And so, in your life, what do you see are those defining moments in your journey thus far?
What Hardika said sort of resonated with me a lot, because I also come from a similar all girls household, middle class, that to a Punjabi middle class family, and none of my father's siblings children ever went to an English medium school. So for me, the defining moment was my father sending me to an English medium school that opened up a lot of sort of opportunities. And I took it, I don't wear it lightly. I took that thing that, given that he has gone against his family and heard so much about giving us this kind of education, I don't let him down in any way. So, and that's why everybody called me that I was too serious. I was too, like I have spent life in colleges like Mithibai, which Hardika will understand, studying rather than having fun. So I guess that was a defining moment. And second defining moment I would think would be my education in IRMA. That lens of empathy and understanding the complexity of issues as ground, that lens, I cannot take it off even if I try. So I think these two have been my defining moments.
Yeah, so getting back to Hardika, who is somebody who has been an inspiration for you? Of course, you've talked about your parents, but
Mhm.
beyond that, to be the professional that you are, in addition to your parents, who
Yeah,
inspired you?
inspired me. I would say that probably inspiration changes as you go through different phases of life, and what is important, what is meaningful, and who you run into, right? Who interacts or touches you, is you, if you will, along the way. I would say, in recent years, and I did spend a lot of time in the US after my education and so on, but recent years, one of the people I do admire a lot is Michelle Obama, right? I think that she has just done an amazing job on the world stage, in terms of establishing this persona of a strong woman, what it means to be a strong woman, professional, personal, at so many levels, right? And I think there's a lot to be learned from that experience, from her experience, especially for people like me who did go through schools in the US where you were a minority, and the minority experience is different. So from that perspective as well.
Yeah, so Ragini, who
Yeah.
inspired you?
So I think, Emmanuel, you will resonate with me. In the times that we started our professional journey, especially me, I saw a lot of women leaders like Ilaben, Joyshri Ben, Vijay. And this microfinance industry was sort of evolving. We had likes of Vijay Mahajan, Prasad. So I won't say it was one person, uh, but different qualities that they imbibed. And also I resonate with Hardika in the sense that over time it's not people, but the qualities that they embody become a sort of um, uh, uh, you know they resonate more with you, and you also realize, you also move from that hero worship to looking at qualities and also understanding that everybody is human at the end. They can make mistakes, even the great
Right.
people, So I think you get a lot of maturity in terms of not hero worshipping, but taking on. But in recent leadership, I think New Zealand's PM Jacinda has sort of resonated with me in her style of leadership. It's sort of validation to all you stand for, because it doesn't qualify that standard norms of leadership that you have to be forceful and it's so she gives you that space, and to all women leaders to say that yes, we can make a mistake, is it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to say I can't do it anymore. So I think
Right. Right.
But
So,
can I just, Emmanuel, let me
yeah,
just,
go ahead, Hardika. Yeah.
as Ragini was speaking about, picking up qualities, it reminded me of something talking about my liberal arts school. So that was a flashback from one of the classes where they talk about how if you take a bar of gold and a bar of silver and you press them together and then you pull them apart, it's still a bar of gold and it's still a bar of silver, but there are specks on either side. And I think what Ragini, what you were saying, I was thinking that's exactly right. These little specks, these little qualities that you take away into your bar of whatever you are from that
right.
other person is the inspiration piece, rather than the person as a whole.
Yes.
Yeah. So, continuing on the same theme, Hardika, what are the qualities that women leaders bring to organizations that are unique?
Well, we need a lot more of them to begin with. So we can talk about a lot of qualities we all bring together. But I would say, there is there's amazing and interesting research done about how women or females in general, as young as 8-month-old, 9-month-old babies, right? So actually, there's a fantastic experiment that was done about how there's like a little TV and you press a button and like Mickey Mouse comes out, right? And there are 8-month-old babies, right? And the boy hits the button and the girl hits the button, and Mickey Mouse. Then Mickey Mouse goes away and the boy is just hitting the button. The girl tries and then looks around and sees there are other toys and goes off to play with those other toys, right? So there is, as young as 8 months, we are wired differently, and an
Mhm.
acknowledgement that we are wired differently, and hence we bring different elements into all parts of our life, is important. The thing that I see most I have a 50% women management team, and I see that most play out when we are all around trying to solve a big problem. There is a lot more of a collegial working style. It's more about solutioning, problem solving, rather than pointing fingers or blaming, or my idea is the best idea. It's the collective idea that wins, and I find that very refreshing and very encouraging, that we can work through issues and into solutions rather than worry about people's personal preferences, if I may say it that way.
Wonderful. So, Ragini, I think on a subject which I think you speak about all the time, about women representation in organizations being low, particularly at leadership levels, what do we do about changing this equation?
Yeah. So, seeing women in senior leadership is sort of an end result. It starts right from the entry level, then it goes to the middle level, and then finally, because overnight you can't just say that, okay, I'm going to make this person a leader. There's a journey. So at the entry level, I think it all starts from finding that woman talent, them going to colleges. And so if I take about my IRMA experience, which was in early 90s, there were 12 girls in a batch of 80. And a batch previous to that had 5,
Mhm.
right? But if I talk to if I see the recent batches, it is almost 49-50%. So we are to some extent solving that problem at the entry level. And then comes them going into the middle level, and that's where it is an interplay of organization culture and our social norms and patriarchy. Because that's when life happens to women, which is different from what happens to men, right? They need to change locations, they need to take breaks, they need to. So, see, society I'm going to leave behind because it is collective. As an organization, we can do some, but we can't change the mindset. But what is it that we can do in our organization culture to retain, our policies, uh, there must be some intentionality because 50% in Kinara doesn't happen just like that, or 40% women representation in Caspian and 50% at senior leadership is not. It doesn't happen automatically. There's an intention. There's a culture. There's hiring. Uh, there is enablement and giving them that position and opportunity. And of course, there are several policies in Caspian which we can talk about in terms of, flexibility at work, paternity and maternity leave both, so that it seems natural that this happens. More sort of, so that can be addressed through culture. And then it is about not bringing in your bias and making them go to the next level, So I think that's how it happens. And as soon as there are senior leader, they will happen in board because there is regulation now. But the regulation is doing that more in letter. It will take some time to move it in spirit. That not because MCA wants us to have one more women director on board, but because we really find this person valuable to have on the board. Yeah, I'll stop
Thank
here.
thank you.
When you get me started on this, it's difficult to stop. Sorry.
Yeah, it's close to your heart. So, Hardika, one admirable thing about Kinara is the stability of the team. And how did you identify talent, particularly women? And then how have you been able to retain them, particularly in a market where compensations are going through the roof and people are moving on? Even if the places are great places to work, they find that there is a attraction of remuneration which is taking them away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that will always be the case. Markets, will swing in different direction for different talent, right? And so I don't want to think of women talent necessarily as separate to the rest of the talent. We have talent, and some are men, some are women, some are transgenders, and and some have special abilities. So we work with all kinds of people who have a talent. They might be at a point in their life or career where that talent is suited elsewhere, or they want to pursue elsewhere, etc. But I think it's less about hiring and retaining, that talent, and it's more about how are you creating an enabling environment where they feel that they are contributing, that they are heard, that they have the power of voice, the power of decisions, and that is essentially this whole environment of empowerment, right? And it takes effort. It takes effort on a daily basis. It takes effort in management meetings. It takes effort even at board meetings, right, to make sure that people are able to speak their point of view. And so the effort that is being made is to create that platform, to create that platform to attract women or people of different talent who may not be a perfect fit. I have this term that my HR, I tell my HR all the time, GOP. They're good on paper, great on paper actually, but
Yeah.
the great on paper in terms of their or work experience is not always the right fit for Kinara. How do we make sure that the right fit people come to us and we can work on the gaps from what they have in terms of skills, and where they need to go and develop that. But most importantly, giving that assurance, right? I want to, the stats on what I think, Ragini, what you were saying is, if you're starting early is good and it's important, but the bigger challenge we now have as a nation, right? 50% women in the country, and now employment of women is dropped to teens. It actually dropped to single digits during COVID, but now it's in the low teens. That's not
Mm.
going to get us to a $5 trillion economy if we
True,
don't
true.
solve this larger problem, right? And so we have on one side, the burgeoning middle class is a great thing for a country, but on the other side, that systemic issue has deepened rather than opened up opportunities for women to stay in the workforce, or or even in business. And so, at least from a workforce perspective, what we love to, or we tried to, I should say, do is really solve for, are we giving a supporting working environment? Are we giving the encouragement, the career path, the growth that they feel that keeps them motivated to stay with us? And then, of course, are we making sure that the enabling environment around, whether they need to take maternity leave or need time after maternity, or not just maternity, for anything, right? So, women have to take the larger burden of care. Maybe they need to care for a, for a elder person, that they are able to have all of that, but fundamentally making sure that when they come in, that they recognize that if they work just as hard and have ambition, that we will nurture both and give them the path to move to the next level.
Right. So, Ragini, hardworking and ambitious women bosses seems to be a little scare for organizations. So, how do you deal with that? And what's been your experience on that?
So, I think these two definitely go together. If you really are ambitious in true sense, then it doesn't happen. You have to work hard. Um, so I think there is no dissonance when you see hardworking and ambitious leaders. It's only when they expect you to be something that you're not. So as long as you are walking the talk and setting the example, and I'm not saying from the skill level, I may not ever have the skill of somebody who works with me, but if I have the same attitude towards, if I want a certain kind of attitude of initiative learning, I need to do it myself first. I can't ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't do. So I think in any leadership, dissonance always arises when the expectations from you is very different, but the same rules do not apply to your leader. So I think that is good. But to the point of this ambition and what Hardika said, uh, I also want to say that for a long time, women employees or contributors felt that being ambitious is sort of negative. It will be seen that they are not. It's not the right quality to have.
Right.
At the society level or an environment. So you try to mask it, but now that is changing. So as Hardika rightly pointed out, when you're nurturing talent, do nurture the ambitions of women as much, because one of the survey that was done for women in investing, three-fourths of them were aspiring to be partners, or even 25% were saying that we will start our own fund, because they didn't see any career path in the funds that they were working in. So
Yes,
nurture ambitions equally is what I would say.
great. Thanks. So, Hardika, in the entrepreneurial ecosystem,
Mm.
the number of women entrepreneurs in our country is a small fraction.
Yeah.
And maybe often you may be the only lady in the conference or speaking from the platform. So, how do we address this, change this equation, and give more opportunities for women?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I think, and as Ragini was talking about, the history of microfinance in, in India really has demonstrated that there are a lot of women entrepreneurs, but at different levels, right? And some might be by choice, but often we have entrepreneurs that have no choice, and it necessitates them to go out and set up that tea stall, or set up the, anything, a stand, or sell vegetables, or whatever it is that they end up having to do to survive for themselves and their families. The participation of women in the larger, like I work with a lot of MSMEs, 60 million MSMEs, and only about 15% are women owned, women operated, right? And that's a very small number. And in our own data, we have done over 80,000 loans to across 6 states. What we see is that actually there's 40 to 45% of the employees of these small businesses are women. But if you roll forward 10 years, right, like only 10 or 15% are now, women entrepreneurs. So something is not working. So it's kind of, if one of the projects I would love to take on, and we should, and maybe I need to find a way how to do it, is how do we go back and understand where the breakdown is from those 44 to the 15. Certainly, I mean, and I'm mixing percentages here, but the point remains, which is that not everybody will want to. It's a harder journey. Let's all accept that entrepreneurial life is a more complicated and requires more resilience and persistence, right? But if you're willing, then what are the things that are stopping? And often, the systemic issues are so deep rooted, that makes it hard. But then access to capital is the other hard part, right? So for at least at Kinara, one thing we have done is we have a Hardika program. We give a discounted loan product to women entrepreneurs. We provide business support. We provide networking opportunities in local at local level in vernacular, which is important for the customer segment we work with. And just to give you a sense about how it takes alignment or commitment to this. We committed last year 200 crores. So this financial year, April to March 23, 200 crores to be dispersed to this program. We actually crossed that in December. So and so what we did was we said, all right, well, I think the targets were not big enough. So next year we go after 400, right? And so it is going to take more of this by many, many, many more people to say, I have a solution that can be an enabler. How do I push the ecosystem to move in that direction, to make that possible? On the flip side, I would say that we do need specialized with the things that I'm not able to do, which requires some sort of public-private partnership. Is we talk a lot about incubators, we talk a lot about women in startup, or female founders and so on. That system, there is now quite a little momentum around this, and I have seen in a lot of accelerators and incubators a fair number of women entrepreneurs as well. How do we take that from that level, say, to the MSME level, right? That how do we work backwards? Because we're only, we only have whatever we have in terms of unicorns, and none of them female owned or operated. So got to work backwards to where the mass is and where we can enable that mass. So wouldn't it be great if we could run like regional vernacular small business incubators that brings in 50% women as part of that process and then enables that in some way? That would be an idea for us to work on.
So, Ragini, again, a issue that you talk a lot about financing to women entrepreneurs, and that it's in proportion very small. Uh, what do you see as the reasons for that? Are there no entrepreneurs of numbers to be financed among women, or is there a bias in the financial system against women entrepreneurs?
So, completely resonate with what Hardika was saying, that a lot of effort on the ground is required. I'll focus on professional women like Hardika and me who are entering into entrepreneurial journey. Like I said, it's hard. It's a choice. Hardika might as well be working in MD of a consulting firm by now. She didn't have to do this. It's very hard. It's very hard. And I do want to congratulate her if we see her company and other companies in this. What she's achieved is she's done it in a very capital efficient manner. We just did an analysis across. So my congratulations. And doing that with a focus on women entrepreneurs, I think it takes a lot of effort. So well done on that. And I think we need more of these as role models. One is a role model, so that the whole point was having somebody to look up to, that you can say that, if she can do it, probably it is possible. It's not like it is not possible. So that is one. So I'll break this into two parts. One is how women entrepreneurs usually, and I don't want to stereotype them, but this comes from a research. One is that they want to be absolutely sure about their idea before they pitch. So to give you an analogy,
Hmm.
if there is a job description and uh, if 50% of the skill match is there, men will apply, but women will apply only if 90% of the skills match, right? So
Hmm.
one, they're extremely careful in terms of that. Second, they always think, before I go to the next level, let me prove this with a smaller one before I ask for more capital. So that is one that is inherent to you. So that is how a women leader sees themselves. Then there is how the investing world, starting from incubators, accelerator to uh, the investor see them. That's where the unconscious biases say. They will ask a different set of question to women entrepreneurs and male. And there's a research. What I'm saying is researched back. I'm sure
Hmm.
Hardika must have faced many more questions about her commitment, her marriage, her family than any male entrepreneur of her caliber or stature. Definitely, they will completely test your, whether you will be available, you will change, you will go back to US, you will not stay, things like that. So that is one. The second, I'm sorry, I'm speaking on behalf of you, but I would love to hear from you.
Absolutely spot on, right? This is why only 3% of global VC funding goes to female founders, right? It's appalling, a stat.
So that is one. And second, the type of questions, promotional versus the risk downside questions. So women entrepreneurs will be asked, okay, what is the risk? What happens if this doesn't happen or that? But for male, how much of the market you can capture? And there's a research, when you're asked promotional questions, you will get more funding. So for the same level of business, same caliber, women end up funding at least 1 million lower than male funders. So that also could be a reason that women run more capital efficient businesses, because they have less to start with, right? But so I think there is a lot of, we also, and also I'm not saying it is only male investors, even I as a female manager or investor could have the same bias. Oh, I had 2 kids and I had this problem, she will also have the same problem, and that I can also have the same. So I'm like a very recent example, and I really credit Abhishek for the kind of understanding of gender he brings and his neutrality. He tells me that I have a very smart CA. Would you like for that person to join your team? And my question is, yes, Abhishek, please send him. And he tells me it's actually a she. And we also need to be conscious about our own biases. So what I'm saying is, women don't get funded partly because their own sort of belief and this, plus how the environment views them, and also that's where the whole ecosystem comes in. That how do incubators, accelerators help them ask the right amount of funding, have a better view of their own business, and also don't run women entrepreneurship program as one CSR, one program in the year. Integrate gender in your regular programs. Do it for everybody, because gender is important for all entrepreneurs. It's not just, yeah.
Right,
So you got me
right.
started.
So, so Hardika, how do you balance personal and professional life? Uh,
I
is
mean,
that different for men and women, or is it the same, or the expectations are?
I'm a man, so I can't answer for all of the men. So there is that. But
Yeah.
look, I mean, look, I think this is a question for every professional, right? We are all ambitious, driving hard, trying to create or achieve milestones at the workplace. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, you have some milestones, or if you're a professional in an organization, you have other milestones. You're really pushing hard for that. So there's always that question of balance, right? Of what is balance, and maybe the notion that we've had of work-life balance is frankly shifting, right? I mean, I remember the pre-internet age, so work was a very binary activity. You went to work, you finished work, and you went home. That's no longer the case. Today we are live online, connected from every part of the world with everybody, or and so in some sense it is given us the ability to have this interplay between prioritization. If I need to do something right now, I could be waiting at the at the dental chair and still responding to emails, and then the work life balance there is both have been addressed, right? I mean, you so in some sense we are in such a fortunate time of from an age of the universe perspective that we're able to have that, and then the rest of it is just personal. Where do you need to or want to or set those boundaries? When do you just say, tech down and no digital toys for the hour, or whatever it is that helps you just find that center and balance for yourself, and prioritizing what is important at that moment or at that point in time.
Right. Thank you. So, Ragini, talking about career breaks, do you think those work in the Indian context, or is it very complicated to get back to work, both men and women?
Yeah. So, in fact, Emmanuel, I started with a career break in within 1.5 years of my career, because my husband had to move countries, and I wasn't working. So I didn't work for 6 years, and I went back to work after a 6 year gap. But of course, I used some of this time to get an additional qualification like management accounting and others. Uh, so I was very behind for the first 10, 15 years, because those 6 years are sort of, you start at but at some point, it sort of evens out, is what I'm saying. So my belief is that look at your career as a marathon. So don't, it's not a 100-meter sprint. Don't worry about the breaks, changes, shifts, coming out of your comfort zone and completely doing something different. If you allow yourself, I think you will reach the destination where you need to be and want to be at some point is. But would love to hear Hardika's view on this.
Okay.
Someone asked me this question about, I have never taken a break. So for me, but the question they had is, look, I had one child and I took a break, and then I had another child, I took a break, and now, 6 years have gone by, and 7 years have gone by, and I've come back to the workforce, and I find all of my peers are like, moved on, and I feel like I missed the bus. And my response to her was very simple: there's another bus coming. You just have to figure out which one is the right bus for you. And often maybe this is something that we as women sometimes are hard on ourselves in trying to live up to a standard that has not been set by us. It's a standard that somebody else has said that, oh, by 30 you must be this, and by 35 you must be a partner, or by 45 you must be this. Who said so? And so perhaps just knowing that well, not to set yourself up for failure. You have gone off to do something just as important, and it doesn't matter whether it's you took a break to take care of a child, or for something else, or pursue a passion, whatever it was. It doesn't matter. You've done something. And just have to find or rebalance what the right answer is for you, and not live by somebody else's so-called prescribed standard.
Okay, so are we coming to the close of this? And if you have some parting message for young women who are starting their careers or looking to do something on their own, what would you tell them? Hardika first.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing to me is you must be clear of your true mission, what you're trying to do. And it can be at any stage, why you're there, what are you trying to do, you know, how can you help, whether it's the organization, it's the business, it's another person, right? What can you give? And then, what does that mean back for you? So being clear in your intention, and then see, as a young professional, I can look back myself, and finding your authentic voice was a hard thing. Who are you? What do you stand for? What are you willing to stake, to believe, to stand for that belief? And in that moment when it happens, whether it's in the workplace or whether it's, whether it's in when you're traveling or a journey or wherever it is. And I think that that we live in a strange world today where there is so much. Let's just think about it. We never had International Women's Day for all of many years, right? Now we are celebrating this. So we've come a long way to even recognize that we need to talk about this. We weren't talking about it. It just happened. People just did what they did. So we're talking about it. Now within that, that is creating opportunities for us to build these platforms, these networks, these connections. How are we going to, in that, find our voice that is authentic to us, and be able to use that, project that for the greater, for the greater good? That is something that I would like, especially for folks young and starting their career, to really think about, because it gets very easy to get swayed by all the swanky toys that you get from working the first few years of your life. No?
Yeah, Ragini, your turn.
Yeah, so uh, uh, absolutely resonate. It is more about giving than taking, and you will be surprised that what happens when you start giving, whether it is in an organization, whether it is in whether you're networking. Just see, it may not come from the person that you gave to, but it will. And it's not philosophical, it's a lived experience, in terms of how this. So I think I would just, from my own experience, I would say uh, there is never any stupid question. Please ask.
Mm.
Please ask at any point of. It took me a long time to do it, but to the young professional, I would say, please ask. And if you don't take the seat at the table, you will never get to share your authentic voice as. So take that, don't shy away. And taking that seat at the table comes with a lot of responsibility, accountability, and also requires a lot more giving. But that's the only way you can count. So don't shy away is what I would say on both the counts.
So thank you so much, Hardika and
Yeah.
Ragini, for this fascinating conversation. There's so much to learn. I think we'll have to listen and re-listen to all the wisdom that you shared with us. And thanks again from Caspian. Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much for
so
having
much.
me. And it was lovely to be on this panel with you, Ragini. And thank you, Manuel, for your wonderful moderation of leading us through this journey. Thank you so much, you guys.
Yes, it was
Thank you.
amazing, Hardika. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Emmanuel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.